Hello and welcome to yesterday's Airlines. Now this video is going to be a bit different and a bit special. As most of you probably know, I get sent models by ngmodels before anybody else does, and I get the honour of being able to look at those samples and give them some feedback and at the same time announce them to people like yourselves, collectors. And that's really awesome. So what I'm going to do in this video is announce the latest ngmodels molds. Now I'm going to do this in a slightly different way to usual because I want to discuss a little bit. I've been getting some really great feedback from collectors ever since I announced that there were going to be a couple of new ng molds I was going to announce in the next couple of weeks, and I just wanted to briefly touch on some of that and also be slightly cheeky and tease you guys a little bit. So there's a bit of a build-up, I guess. So as you can see in front of you, we've got a box. We've got a box for a Mexicana 757, and this is the box that the new mold samples came in. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to run through some of the options that ngmodels could have made with these new molds, but didn't. And then at the end, I will unveil the new ng molds. So if you're going to get bored really easily, then you can always skip to the end for the reveal. But otherwise, let's get started, shall we? So one of the interesting things, I'll get rid of the box, is the divergence in what people are after. And there very much seems like there's kind of two areas of collectors and what they're after. And some of them are younger collectors typically who are keen for modern airliners like this Boeing 787-8 here. And I can understand why they want those. They're exciting, they're new, and those collectors typically collect modern airliners mainly and not older types. They also tend to sell much better than classics, but they also have almost all been made before. This 787-8 here, for example, is not a new mold at all, though it actually is a really nice one. It's a mold that is made, as you can see, years ago now by Apollo, which was one of the brands of wittywings. So some people have been asking for models like a new 787-8, and sometimes I go, WTF, why? And in this case, I can tell you that the new NG sample is not a 787-8, which is probably just as well because Aviation 400 have literally just announced one of those a few months ago anyway. So that's the first model. It is not a 787-8. Now the other group of collectors out there typically is perhaps a little bit older and is looking for either completely new molds, of which there aren't too many modern aircraft that haven't had a mold, or they're looking for new versions of older molds. So, one of the biggest asks is obviously in the jumbo space. Loads of people would like to see new 747s. I'm one of those people. There have been new 747s recently, like this Aero Classics Series 100, and they're pretty good, but they're not quite up to 2021 standards. The mold's a little bit old, it doesn't have aerials, so on and so forth. So I would love to see 747s myself, but as obviously that is not going to be fitting inside this Mexicana 757 box, the new NG molds are not a Boeing 747. I really hope, however, that we do see new 747s soon, but I'm in the dark as much as you. NG do not tell me what they're sending me before they send it. Now sometimes people ask for molds which frankly I'm a little bit confused by, because I think the ones that exist are good, and one of these is the 767. I've seen people ask for new 767 molds. Another one is the DC-10. These are both really interesting types. I've got lots of both, and I'm sure lots of collectors do. 767 especially straddles that kind of slightly getting old area, but still used by a lot of cargo airlines especially. The 10's well out of service except by the US Air Force and a few others, but nonetheless, both of these have got wide representation in 400 scale, and even though that's the Gemini DC-10, which is a little long in the tooth, it's still a decent mold, and there are loads of recent Aero Classic 10s which all look awesome. Similarly for 767-300, I actually think these are good molds. This is quite an old mold, it's got C-mite MIP, but it is a good mold, and So I am not disappointed to say that the new NG models samples are not DC-10s or 767s. Sorry guys. Now wide bodies typically sell much better than narrow-bodied airliners. So you know, you've recently seen a lot more wide bodies being produced than narrow bodies, and often when you look at releases, they're almost all wide bodies. But that means that narrow body molds are often, you know, rather ignored. And again, there are a wide variety of molds available. Often they're not very well used. For example, you know, if we look at the 737 classics, the 300, 400, 500, there's a few molds, and this is the best one, the Panda version. Doesn't get a great deal of use. And so you might think, oh, hey, engineer, you could make some so you could actually use it. They haven't this time. So it's not the 737, 300, 400, 500. There is plenty of work, plenty of releases that could be made. I'd like to see them just use this Panda mold. It's really very nice. Similarly, there are other older molds, which I've got lots of, and I don't mind too much, but some collectors really have a bee in their bonnet about. One of them is the 727-200. Lots of people don't like the Aero Classics mold, mainly because of the exhaust on the number 2 engine. I actually think it's fine. It doesn't bother me too much, and it's a nice mold. And NG clearly don't have a 727 that high on their agenda, because it is not a 727 either. So now we're getting back into some modern territory. Another mold people have talked about a lot is the A320. And again, this is a massively overrepresented type in 400 scale. There have been so many A320 releases, and almost all the manufacturers have an A320 aside from NG. This is the Panda version. Again, it's actually really nice. I personally don't feel the need for any more A320 molds. You've already got the Panda version, you've got the Aero Classics version, you've got the Phoenix version, which is okay. The jcwings one's okay sometimes, depending on how they fit the engines and what variant it is. And you've got lots of older molds, older Gemini molds, older Dragon molds, which admittedly aren't very good. But nonetheless, there's plenty of A320s out there, and there's not that many models that I'm desperate to see. And most of the ones I am desperate to see are older ones anyway, which I'd which probably wouldn't be high up on most manufacturers' release boards. So yes, NG don't have an A320. They do have an A321, and they could easily potentially shorten it, but they haven't yet. And this new version is not an Airbus A320. So now we're gradually, you know, running out of aircraft types, you might think. That isn't true. There are plenty of aircraft types that have either never been made or often don't get made. One of the ones which I would really like is McDonnell Douglas MD-80. There are so few MD-80s. This old Dragon mold is beautiful, but nonetheless, it's not been used that often, and it, you know, it is Dragon. So many MD-80s. But unfortunately, Mad Dog lovers, the MD-80 is got a pass again, and NG have not accepted that request this time round. So unfortunately, it is not an MD-80. I'd love to be sitting here telling you it was, because it's probably my #1 mold that I'd like to see, and it isn't. Sadly, it also isn't a DC-910, which is also probably my second mold I'd like to see. That is also not the model that it is. So sorry about that, guys. It is not those. So kind of what is it? What is inside this box? What is it that NG have graced us with this time around? So let me start by saying it's unique. There are not that many major airliners that have never had a mold in 400 scale, but there are still quite a few. There are even less that date from the 1990s and 2000s that have never had a mold in 400 scale. But there are still a couple. So I can tell you that the new NG models molds that they have sent me are new airliners. They're both jets. They both date from the 1990s and the 2000s, and they are still in service, though not in large numbers. So give you a couple of seconds to think about what that might be, and I can tell you that the new ngmodels molds created and sent to me just a couple of weeks ago are, drum roll please, the Tupolev TU-204-100 and the Tupolev TU-204-300. Yes, ngmodels have announced 2 new Soviet-era Russian airliners, the first time they have ever been released in 400 scale. They both look awesome, and we will be taking a much closer look at these in my next video. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope that this has been an exciting announcement for you. I can tell some people will be disappointed and some people will be super excited. It's always the way with these mold reveals, but personally I really am excited. I think these are unique airliners. They're really interesting. There's some really classy liveries to be made on these, and I'm really looking forward to looking at them in more detail. So thank you very much for watching. As I said, I will be reviewing these new Tupolevs in some detail over the next coming days with videos and work on the website. So subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram at yes2airlines. Follow me on Facebook. And obviously check out the website, yesterdaysairlines.com, because there will be a lot of chat about these cool new models, and obviously NG and other manufacturers send me new stuff all the time. I'm always there, keeping an eye on what's going on in the scale. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Until next time, see you later.